I'm Brian Lilly, getting lectures from the United Nations. That is the topic of tonight's byline. For leftists, there's no greater body, no greater good than the UN. Despite all the failures of the United Nations, like their inability to stop wars from Syria to Darfur, the corruption that is rampant in the organization, and the place of prominence afforded dictators, leftists still love the place. So when a left-wing media outlet like CBC gets to interview the head of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, well, they get pretty excited. Just listen to Peter Mansbridge's introduction to the report, all about his own interview with the UN head honcho.
Another stark message about climate change aimed directly at Canada today. Stop stalling, stop waiting for others to act, start leading now. It came from someone who is always very mindful of his words. But Ban Ki-moon made it clear he has no time for climate change deniers.
If you didn't get the hint, you soon will. CBC is using their time with the UN leader not to ask about problems with the global body. No, they want to let the UN attack Canada.
I strongly urge Canada become very ambitious and visionary for the global future of people and the planet.
You know, in fairness to Mansbridge, maybe he did ask about problems at the UN. The whole interview was yet to run, but so far what we're getting from his introduction, from the clip selected, from the reporter's words, the United Nations is unhappy with Canada on climate change, and therefore Canada should change. Well, that message was picked up loud and clear here by the left. Liberal MP Scott Bryson used the CBC stick to beat the government with during question period.
Now we see the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, is actually scolding us. He says that Canada needs to stop stalling on climate change and that we need to start thinking about others.
What Ban Ki-moon seems to be thinking about is getting others elected in Canada. Moon knows this is a sensitive domestic issue. He doesn't care. He just jumps right in where he doesn't belong.
I know the domestic politics in Canada and Australia and some countries, but this is a global issue. This goes beyond the national boundary because climate change has been impacting our life, a whole spectrum of our life.
The United Nations simply shouldn't be jumping into domestic politics like this. But when you think that you are the world's government, well, what do you care? You aren't elected. There's no consequences. Do what you want. And hey, when you are CBC and you've got a globalist like Ban Ki-moon dumping all over Canada, well, milk that for all that it's worth. CBC's report went on to point out that they pointed to the U.S.-China climate deal. Remember this one? This is the deal between the world's two largest emitters, the world's two largest polluters as well. And they said this deal is an example of what we in Canada should be doing. This is the same deal that allows China to continue to grow emissions until the year 2030 before curbing a thing. That's right, another decade and a half before China agrees to peak their greenhouse gas emissions. The thing that Ban Ki-moon, Peter Mansbridge, and everyone at CBC is so worried about. Meanwhile, the U.S., under this deal, would reduce its carbon emissions by 26 to 28% below 2005 levels. And for this, Obama gets praise. The Canadian goal, the long-stated Canadian goal of the Harper government, is to reduce our emissions 17% below 2005 levels. Canada is a much smaller emitter than the U.S. Environment Canada says that as of 2012, emissions were already reduced to 5.1% below 2005 levels, even though the economy grew by 10.6% in that time period. So Canada has a similar commitment to the U.S. But the Canadian government's been blasted for it by the same people that praise Obama. Why? Because of the 2005 benchmark. Under Kyoto, Canada was supposed to reduce its emissions to 6% below the 1990 levels. Jean Chrétien and the Liberals, they agreed to that. They committed Canada to that goal. And then they did nothing. They let emissions grow and grow and grow and grow. And all the while, they kept saying, we're great for the environment. And you know what? They only got religion on reducing the emissions that they said they cared about once they were in opposition and could use that to attack the government with. And that's what this is all about. Stephen Harper and the Conservatives are attacked for not doing enough, even though they've actually done more on this file than the Liberals ever did. Let's take well, let's forget about whether this is something we should even be doing. Leave that out of the equation. Let's ignore that global warming stopped happening 18 years ago. Let's ignore all the scientists now questioning the UN and its bad climate science. The Harper conservatives have done more on this file than the Liberals ever did. They have brought in real regulation on coal-powered plants. They have set real targets, and they've done all this while being called climate change deniers. Why? Well, maybe they've been doing it in the hopes of getting the smart set to like them. Let me tell you, it's not working. Ban Ki-moon is attacking Canada. The CBC is attacking Canada. The opposition parties and most of the other media, they're attacking Canada for not doing what Obama's doing, making a deal that sets similar targets to what Canada's had set for years. That's bizarre. For making a deal that lets China ramp up emissions for 15 more years. They don't even look at the facts. The global fight against climate change is the battering ram of the political left. It's not about science. It's not about the environment. It is about leftist policies being put in place around the globe. Despite claims to the contrary, conservatives do care about the environment, but they care about the real issues like clean air, clean water, clean soil. They care about preserving nature. They don't care about fanciful schemes to shift money around the globe out of some sense of climate guilt. Maybe this time, Stephen Harper and the Conservatives will learn the lesson that pleasing your enemies doesn't turn them into friends. They need to focus on the real environmental problems, leave the posturing in Lima, Peru for others, because it doesn't matter what you pledge or what you do, you will still be attacked simply for not being of the right political stripe. And that's the byline.